In an industry stuffed with marketing bullshit, empty promises, and shiny-suited liars, one woman's had enough. She knows what it's like to have the wrong clients, no money, and no time for fun. But she also knows how to fix it. And on the Business for Superheroes show, she promises to tell the down and dirty truth about business, sales, and running away with the circus. Here's your host, Vicky Fraser.
Hello and welcome to the Business for Superheroes show. I'm Vicky Fraser, and this is my husband, Joe.
Hello.
Hello. Don't know how Joe is going to do today because Joe got kicked in the face a couple of days ago, didn't you, Joe?
I did, and my jaw has not been right since.
It has not. And the first evening after he'd been kicked in the face, he left half his dinner, which I don't think has ever happened.
No.
I was quite worried.
Basically, I can't bite anything. I feel like I'm probably going to lisp a little bit as well.
So between the two of us, me with my new braces and Joe with his freshly kicked face, we are not doing so well with the eating and the speaking.
So good. No. Eating and speaking, not good.
Eating and speaking, not good. So we are here recording a podcast. It's a Thursday, and I'm really excited because we're going on holiday in 2 days.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. So while you are listening to this podcast, actually we'll probably be packing up ready to come home.
Oh,
because we'll have been away for a week.
Okay.
Oh, that's depressing. We are going to Northumberland.
Where we are going to read books.
Oh, yes.
Wander around castles.
Whittle twigs.
Whittle.
Yeah, I'm going to make my knife, finally.
Yeah.
Joe bought me a make-your-own knife kit about 53 years ago.
And you didn't.
And I didn't. And the reason I didn't is because I didn't want to ruin it. I didn't want to make a ham-fisted job of, I don't know, ruining my knife. But then I decided it's time.
Time to ruin that handle.
It's time to ruin that handle, yeah. So I'm going to make my knife. And also I bought Joe a book the other day called Whittling? A book about whittling, anyway. And it's this guy, and he shows you, well, it's
Can you guess what it's about?
Can you guess what it's about? Yeah. You get a twig, and you get a knife, and then you whittle, so I'm going to come home with loads of little whittled sheeps and cockerels and cats and things. We're going to whittle things, aren't we?
Basically, we're going to have a super quiet, lazy holiday where we whittle and maybe have a beer. And
a near.
A beer.
A near.
A beer.
Well, I'm going to have a near.
I'm going to have a beer.
We're going to fill the car with non-alcoholic beer because I'm frightened that they won't have it up north.
I'm not worried about the lack of beer up north.
And we're also going to go to castles. Oh, okay. So Jill, hi Jill.
Hi Jill.
Gave us a list of places that we should go to, and a couple of them were already on our list, but then a few I hadn't heard of. And there's a place called Chillingham Castle.
Right.
And apparently it's super creepy, and the castle's filled with really weird shit. And there are wild cows there that are pure white, and they're like weird mutant cows. They're not mutant cows, but in my head they are. And the bulls fight to the death to mate with the females.
Right.
Apparently it's just a really creepy area, and I'm really excited we're going to go and visit.
Cool.
Yeah.
And there's poison gardens, there's treehouse restaurants, there's all kinds of good stuff.
And there's Barter Books. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Barter Books is one of the biggest bookshops in the UK, and it's housed in an old railway station, and it just looks incredible, and I've always wanted to go, and I'm so excited. And
I'm going to make sure that every square inch of the car is full when we go on holiday so that Vicky cannot buy all of the books and bring them back to our house, which is rapidly filling up with books.
I am going to fill up every available space in the car with books. And
there will be no available space in the car.
And I have I think £125 in my fun money account, and I think I'm going to take it all out and go to the bookshop. It's going to be brilliant. Yeah. Anyway, so this week we are answering your questions, dear listener.
I'm not sure about this whole videoing thing.
Why?
It's making you smile and point at the camera and stuff. Weird.
Oh, sorry.
Weird.
I'll stop smiling then. Okay, so we're gonna do some questions. So Joe, let's do the normal. You ask the question and then I can answer it.
Okay. Natasha Lewis. So my first question is about the author bit in books. I've been doing some research, and in most cases I found that they read almost like a CV and are boring as hell. Do people really need to know what your education was, where you live, how many husbands, kids, children, animals, whatever you've got? Surely there's a better way to do this. how do I approach writing this section of my book and make it more interesting?
That is a really good question, Natasha. And it's something that a lot of people struggle with, because mostly on their websites, because when it comes to the about page on your website, you need to write something and everybody goes, I don't know what to write. I can't write about myself, because we find it really difficult to write about ourselves. So, and yeah, I agree. Some of them do read almost like a CV, and I don't think that is, I think that, that has its place maybe in some books, but this is your opportunity for people to find out a bit more about who you are as a person. And, not just in the context of what you're writing about. So for me, people already, in my preface, which I don't call a preface because that's stuffy, but in my preface, I talk about why I've written the book and that context, about me in that context. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But the about the author bit is your chance to tell people anything you like, really. So, for example, in my new book, I can't even remember what I've written. Let's find out. In my new book, my about the author page is called Really Did Run Away with the Circus. And it starts, how does one accidentally end up with 3 tiny sheep? Be in the wrong place at the right time and come home with a surprise wonky lamb. Not a joke, this is my ridiculous and delightful life. And so that's how I start my about the author bit, and it's just like, okay, so what else do I do? And that's not just I've got these animals and blah blah blah. That's the start of a story about me and my life, and it gives you some kind of an idea of what I'm like outside of work. It's like, well, okay, so I've accidentally got 3 sheep and I came home with a wonky lamb. That automatically tells you that I'm the kind of soppy idiot who will just rescue all of the animals and bring them home.
Which is true.
And so I thought, how am I going to do this? It's not going to be one of those about the author pages where I tell you my rags to riches story, because I don't have one of those. I've never been poor, thankfully, and I'm not really what you would call rich in terms of, big piles of cash. Anyway, I think I'm rich in other ways. And so, you don't want my CV, and what exactly is my about the author page? And I've said here, it's like a little bit of a window into my brain. Not too much of a window, not opening the door too wide, because I think that would frighten people. Mm-hmm. But I thought, okay, so what do people want to know? And I was like, this is going to turn into like a really boring blah blah, CV if I'm not careful. And so I just thought, you know what, I'm going to tell people 24 things about me. And I just listed a bunch of stuff. And so one of them, for example, is I love my cats more than is socially acceptable. That is true. I do. I have a short hair attention span. My hair is currently blue and silver. Also true. Actually, it's been blue and silver for quite a long time. Mm. And maybe my hair attention span is getting longer. I spend more time than is probably sensible or sane working on my zombie plan. It's actually true as well. One of life's tiny pleasures for me is sitting outside and putting socks on. It just feels really nice.
To quote Vicky, I like putting socks on in the wind.
When did I say that? We were camping.
We were camping somewhere.
And I was putting socks on in the wind, and it was really nice. Yeah. So, yeah, you can... Look, you're about the author section, and this goes for your website as well as your book. You can write whatever you like. Don't write a CV, because honestly, that's boring. It might be important for people to know your credentials, but I think there are other places that you can do that. And this is your chance to tell a bit more of your story, the kind of your story that isn't going to fit anywhere else in your book. What do you think?
I think that sounds reasonable. I mean, it's not a section of book that I would typically seek out or possibly read. But, so if it's got to be different. If it's even vaguely like a CV, I'm probably going to pass, unless you're the first woman on the moon or something. I'm not that bothered. Mostly,
but if you read a book,
it's got to be interesting.
Yeah, it does. But if you read a book that you absolutely love, and you're kind of sad that it's ended, your automatic reaction is to read everything then, isn't it? You read like the end notes, and you read the references, and you read the about the author section. Mm-hmm. And so if you've written a book that people really love and they loved every page of it, then they're going to want to know more about you, and they're going to want to know more about you anyway. So you can do that without saying, where you live, how many husbands, kids and animals you've got. You can bring that stuff into it, but you don't have to do it in...
Yeah, please don't write a a really dull couple of paragraphs.
Yeah, I don't write like a little boring autobiography. So I don't know if that's really helped with the how to write and about the author page.
Yeah, don't be dull. Yeah.
Don't be dull. Yeah, I just think, what do people find interesting about you when you talk to them? Because the thing is, because our lives are very familiar to us because we're living them, we never think that what we do is interesting. Like, I don't think I'm particularly out of the ordinary, but you tell me that I am.
Yes, you're pretty strange.
Thanks.
But yeah, I mean, I guess the thing to do is not feel constrained by what other people do in there about the author section.
Yeah.
Because it's your book and you're interesting. So, be interesting.
Because you said, some of the ones you've read are really boring. And so you can look at those and think, okay, what are the elements of this that I find boring? And then you don't do that. Go and look at the ones when you found one that you thought, oh, that's great about the author.
What have they actually done?
What have they done and how have they done it? Also, you don't have to have a really long one, and you can have... So it's a good idea to have a longer bio, which is kind of what about the author is really. A longer bio and a very short one as well, because you're going to want a really short one for interviews and things like that. And you're going to want a longer one for other places. So I hope that helps. I kind of feel like maybe it doesn't. Sorry. But your book, your rules, you can do what you like.
Natasha's second question is about the back cover blurb. How do I go about writing the back without making it sound like a dog training advert? Or is this what it needs to be? I don't know. Does Natasha do dog training?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes more sense. I hope you can help me understand what the best ways are to approach these last few sections in my book.
Yes. And again, that's a very good question. It's probably one of the most important parts of your book, the back cover blurb is. And it's so important that I entirely forgot to put it into my How the Hell Do You Write a Book until I got to my third edit.
Nice.
The reason... I know. Confession time. The reason I forgot is because I hate writing the back blurb. I hate it. Hate it.
Yeah.
And I've told a few people that, and they're like, really? But you're a writer? I was like, yes. Doesn't mean that I like every aspect. There isn't a back on that.
Oh.
So... yeah, it's difficult. It's a difficult thing to write, and it's also really, really, really important because if you think about the way you read a book, first thing that you look at is the cover. The general cover is like the cover image will catch your eye. Second thing you're going to look at is the title and the subtitle, and that's going to be the thing that's going to make you think, oh, yeah, this is a book that I want to read. What's the next thing you do?
You turn it over and you read the back.
Turn it over and you read the back. And if the back blurb is boring as shit, what are you not going to do?
Well, you're not going to buy it. You're just going to put it back on the shelf and drift on to the next interesting-looking cover.
Exactly. So the back of your book is the probably third most important part of the entire thing because it doesn't matter how amazing the inside of your book is. If nobody's going to open it up and read it, it's utterly pointless.
So let me get this straight. You got through to the third draft of your book before you'd even considered telling people how to write the back of the book.
Yeah.
Is that what we're saying? Okay.
Yeah, you know what? I think because I hate doing it so much, I had just blanked it from my mind, and it wasn't until I was editing the section of the book about the covers, and I got to edit it. I was editing, and I was thinking, wait a minute, there isn't anything about the back cover here. That's quite. But you know what? Beta readers, I'm looking at you here and giving you the side eye. Not one of my beta readers pointed that out either. And oh my god, I love you guys. I love my beta readers so much because this book is so much better because of their input and help and all that.
But what were you thinking?
But none of you noticed that I hadn't said anything about the back cover, which I find hilarious. So yeah, that was fun. There is now a section on how to write your back blurb.
Okay.
So the back blurb has one job only. It's like a little advertisement for your book. It's not a synopsis. It is not a summary of what's in the book. That's not its point. It's not a big testimonial or quote, although you can put those on the back of your book. There are going to be testimonials on the back of my book. And it is not a summary, I guess, of the entire thing. What your back blurb is there for is to hook the reader and then to give them an idea, tantalise them, and then make them want to read on. So a good thing to do is to start with perhaps a question or a statement or something that speaks to the problem or the goal that your reader wants to get. And this is where I totally forget what's in my back blurb. So bear with me. Joe, talk amongst yourselves for a second.
So this is all kind of... This is very similar to writing an article. You know, you've got your cover, you've got the title of the thing, you've got your first sentence, and each thing needs to lead on to the next. So with your book, you've got your cover, you've got the title, you've got your back blurb, and it's only if those three things are satisfactory will the reader actually consider reading your book. What are you doing, Vicky?
I don't know. I've lost everything. I've lost the plot. So, yes.
Back blurb.
Back blurb. I'm just trying to find my own back blurb. Here we go. There we go.
Just there.
Right. I have a couple of quotes on there from a couple of my beta readers who have read it, and they've said really nice things. Reading your book has made me want to write another one. And anyone serious about writing the best business book they're capable of should read this and follow your Beetle steps. Yes, they should.
Nice.
And then I put my back blurb together. And I have spoken to probably the biggest problem that I've found that that writers face when they're sitting down to write their book. And my very first sentence says, "It's never been easier to write and publish your own business book, right up until the moment you sit down to start." Because that is the point at which it all falls apart for most people. And then I give people a little bit of insight into what they're going to get. In this entertaining page-turner of a guide, author and book writing expert Vicky Fraser breaks down years of experience writing and self-publishing for herself and a host of clients to share everything you need to write your own business book and use it to grow your business.
Nice.
It's easier to write about yourself in the third person than it is to say, "I'm awesome."
Yes, you don't want to be meing and weeing all over it, do you?
You don't. And you do need to become a little bit comfortable with a certain amount of "I'm awesome," because if you don't believe that your book is awesome, then, or if you don't put, even if you can't quite bring yourself to believe that, if you don't write that on the back of your book and make other people believe it, they're not going to want to pick it up. So you've got to be comfortable with blowing your own trumpet here. And then I've put a bunch of bullet points. And my bullet points just give you an idea of what you're going to get in the book, but they don't tell you too much information. So, for example, I've got, you'll discover how to overcome the blank page of doom permanently, which is a big problem that writers face.
Yeah.
Massive problem. Why your inner dickhead wants to sabotage you and how to stop it, which is kind of intriguing because people are going to be like, "Oh, what's that all about?" Because everybody's got that nasty inner voice that tries to stop them doing stuff. Where to find inspiration and how to cultivate your hidden creativity, because that's a really common question that I get. How to avoid looking like an amateur. Tips and tricks to make you look like the professional you are, because nobody wants to look like an amateur.
Yeah.
Why tedious writing is fear masquerading as professionalism, and how to add a little outrageous flair. Also super important. How to destroy fluff and waffle so your business book isn't overstuffed and dull. Because a common complaint about business books is, well, it would have been great if it was third the size.
Yes. I've definitely read business books that could have been a 20-page essay.
Yeah. And they would have been much more compelling.
Instead of
powerful.
150 pages of just say it again louder.
Yeah. And that's all stuff that I go into in my book, and I wanted to make that clear. What to do at the end of your book so your reader yells, "Shut up and take my money," because that is ultimately the point of writing, well, one of the points of writing your business book. Why authors abandon their book projects and how to make sure you finish yours. Speaking as a professional book abandoner, I'm really well placed to talk about this. Because I've now almost finished 2 books.
You have abandoned a few, though.
I've abandoned a handful. But I have completed way more than I've abandoned. Not just for me, for my clients. And much more. And then it finishes, pick up, how the hell do you write a book now to unleash your inner author and write the book that could transform your business? So the whole point of your back blurb is to get people to want to read on. And it's really, really super important. It's really super important. So I would have really liked a step-by-step instruction manual for writing the back blurb, because basically what it has to do is pitch for your book, sales pitch for your book, to be persuasive, captivating, and make the reader want to read on. And you've got to do all of that stuff in 200 words, which is really difficult. Really difficult. Which is why I hate writing it. So here we go. This is my top tip for black blurb.
Black burbs.
Number 1, look at the bestsellers in non-fiction and read their back blurbs. What similarities do they share? What makes them compelling? What makes you want to read on? And make a note of the structure so that you can adapt it for your book. Because the stuff that's selling really, really well, they will have done a really good job with the back blurb.
Yeah.
They will have had to have done. If it's really, I mean, unless you're somebody like, I don't know, if you're a massive name in your industry, you could probably publish a blank book and people would still buy it. Didn't a band do that with a record once? They published a completely blank silent record and people bought it.
I don't know.
I think they did. Is it Deep Purple? Did they do that?
I have no idea.
I need to find that out. Remind me. Because that's a thing. And that will make a good story. Remind me.
There was somebody recently selling absolutely nothing for $20, wasn't there?
Oh, that was Cards Against Humanity.
Yeah.
They were also selling actual bullshit. All of the money was going to charity. Cards Against Humanity, hilarious. Anyway, number 2. Put yourself in your reader's shoes. So you, reader, has a problem to solve or a goal to reach. Start with that. Richard, and there's an example. There's a guy called Richard Bayan. I think that's how you pronounce it. And he's got a book, very famous book called Words That Sell. All copywriters have a copy of that. It's a really good book, and get a copy, by the way. And the back cover blurb shows you immediately that, if you're struggling to find the right words to sell stuff, his book will help you. And it says, the very first sentence is, more than 6,000 words and phrases that make the difference between yada, yada, yada and copy that sells. It tells you exactly what's in there. Mm-hmm. Speaks to the problem, all the rest of it. So put yourself in your reader's shoes. What's their problem? What are they aiming for? What do they want? What can you put on the back of your book that's going to make them go, yes, this book will help me. This book will solve my problem. Number 3, make it easy to scan. So most readers are going to give your back cover blurb about 10 seconds to convince them to buy it. So it better be really easy to read, which is why I've got bullet points on the back of mine. Bullet points are really easy to read. Make sure that the copy is big enough as well. So if it's too small and difficult to read, and if it's a colour on a colour that, is difficult, they're not going to read it. So 3 to 5 bullet points is a really good idea. Pull out your main benefits, make them a bit intriguing. That's a really good thing to do. And number 4 is write a killer first line, which is a lot easier said than done. I'm very well aware of that. But again, check out other non-fiction books for inspiration and look outside your industry for inspiration as well. Because if you're just looking within your industry, the danger is that you're going to inadvertently plagiarise something that's already out there.
Sure.
Or just not even plagiarise, but just be too similar. So I've looked all over, like, outside of my industry, and a lot of the elements on the back cover of my book I've pulled from other things because I've worked. So Professor Steve Peters, who wrote The Chimp Paradox, his first line, I love it. Your inner chimp can be your best friend or your worst enemy. This is the chimp paradox. It almost sounds like the tagline for a film. Mm-hmm. And that's a really good thing to do because that's, film taglines work. They make us want to watch the film. And his back cover also, by the way, is intriguing. It's scannable. It contains celebrity endorsements. It's got all of the elements of a winning back cover.
Cool.
So have a look. See if you can get some inspiration. Basically, your back blurb should set out the question, challenge, or problem your reader faces. And promise answers.
They've got to recognise themselves in what you're saying, haven't they?
They really have. What time are we on?
I have no idea.
22 minutes.
We've got one more?
I don't know. Have we got one more? Can we do one more?
Okay, so I am a mortgage broker. I'm not a mortgage broker. I'm a mortgage broker and life/health insurance specialist. How and why would I write a book about that, and who would buy it?
That is a good question. It's a very good question.
I don't know who asked it.
No, nor do I. I can't remember. I'm really sorry if you asked that question. I do apologise.
Poor note-taking.
Sorry. So yeah, it is a good question. Loads of people, anybody who has a vested interest in providing for their family will be interested in a book that you can write. And it doesn't have to necessarily be about your industry. So for example, one of my clients has written a book called The Later Living Guide. She's a solicitor, but she's written about all aspects of getting older and making sure that you and your family are well looked after. And of course, there's some stuff that, pertaining to wills and powers of attorney and all of that kind of thing. But she's also pulled in other experts and talked about how to find a care home and how to choose, how to sort your pension out and all of that kind of thing as well. That isn't directly related to her industry, but is super useful for the people that she's going to be talking about making wills and powers of attorney and executing wills and all that kind of thing. So think about it that way. What are people, if you're a mortgage broker, what kind of a book would be really interesting to people? Would be, I don't know, maybe how to buy a property in as stress-free a way as possible. So all of your time as a mortgage broker, what top tips have you got for people buying their, you could write a book specifically aimed at first-time buyers. You could write a book aimed at people who are property developers. You could write a book aimed at people
buy-to-letting.
Buy-to-let, all sorts. And what will people find useful? And as for the life and health insurance, well, what else, what can you write about around that? What do people need to look for in life insurance? Why might they need it? what stories can you tell from people who you've worked with?
I reckon there's a whole bunch of people out there who feel a little bit chaotic, are effectively grown-up teenagers with a proper job, who really have a kind of slightly nervous fear that they haven't got their shit sorted.
Yeah.
And
so
you could properly, if you can hook into those people, they'll buy your book and they'll sort their shit out.
And they'll sort it out with you because you're the one who solved their problem. And remember, you don't have to just think a bit wider. I don't want to use the phrase think outside the box because it's a bit wanky, but think outside the box. Frankly, think outside your box. You're a life and health insurance specialist for sure, but within that goes all of this other stuff that Joe's just mentioned about, actually, I don't feel like I've got my shit together. So what else do people who haven't got their life and health insurance sorted, what else do they struggle with? Usually stuff like car insurance.
They haven't written a will.
They haven't, they don't know how to, stuff like they don't know how to plan for a holiday. And, there's a bazillion adult, how to adult. You could write a book called How to Adult. Yeah,
totally good.
Yeah, and, how to adult without turning into a cardigan wearing boring person. I'm really sorry to anyone who wears cardigans. I'm wearing a cardigan right now. Hi, Trumps.
Hi, Trumps.
A bit of an inside joke that nobody is going to get.
Nobody will get that.
Yeah. So I hope that's given you a few ideas for a book that you can write. You don't have to write about mortgage broking and the insurance industry because you're right, that would be really boring and nobody wants to buy it. But if you write a book helping people who are feeling a bit chaotic feel like they're a bit less chaotic and that they can cope with adulting, that's really powerful.
Yeah.
So what goes with
I'd buy
it?
that book.
I would as well. Write the book. We need the book. Write the book, dude. And who would buy it? I think we've just answered that. Anybody who
knows there's things out there that they should have done but they haven't.
Yeah, I mean, we've literally just got our wills sorted and we're, 40-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was grown up enough getting a bloody mortgage.
It was.
So anyway, I hope that has answered your question. I hope that you, Mr. Mortgage Broker and Life Health Insurance Specialist, now the only thing I remember is that it was a bloke who sent that in. So yeah, I hope that's helped and I hope that you're going to write a book because I think it's a book that people will need.
Yeah, that would work.
Yeah. Right then, we are done. We will be back same time next week with possibly more questions because there are more questions on this list. And we haven't done a Q&A for a while. And yeah, we'll be back same time next week. In the meantime, if you haven't rated us...
5 stars.
5 stars, please, on iTunes. And leave us a review. We would love that. And share it with your friends. And if you've listened to every single episode, please email me, vicky@vickyfraser.com, because I have got a special little gift to send you as a super fan.
Don't get too excited.
Get excited. It's awesome. People love it. Right. Thanks, Joe.
No worries.
Bye.
Bye.
Like what you've just heard? Tell your colleagues. Tell your friends. Send them to www.businessforsuperheroes.com/podcast.